you ever feel like you were being lied to? Wouldn't it be nice to have a technique that you could use that was virtually foolproof to help you discern if you are being lied to in any particular situation? That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, when I took a job in the district attorney's office, it wasn't because I enjoyed putting people in jail, quite the opposite. I went there because I wanted to eventually be the best defense attorney that I could be, and I knew the training that they gave there was superior to anything you could get in the private sector. Of course, I didn't know the twists and turns my life was going to take, and this training also helped me to be a far superior criminal than I would have ordinarily been. But the training that I'm talking about today came from a seminar that they gave. It was mandatory for all assistant district attorneys to go to, and it was basically the police were training us. It was actually the FBI were training us techniques on how to discern if someone is not telling you the truth and to even get a confession out of those people. As always, I like to use an illustration from either one section of my private practice or from prison or crimes that I committed. In this particular case, I was defending someone. It was a bank robber. His name was Michael. And Michael was at the police station, and he had apparently, he says, asked for an attorney. The police said he hadn't asked for an attorney, but he did get a phone call, and he didn't have my number. He called somebody from his family who got in touch with me, and I went straight down to the police station. When I got to the interrogation room, they were already asking him questions, and they had pictures laid out on the desk in front of him. As soon as I walked in, I said, "Wrap it up, no more questions," and stopped them from asking the police from asking him anything else. They didn't arrest him at the time. They didn't get far enough, and they did not use the techniques that I'm going to explain to you. So when I asked Michael what had happened up to that point, he said that they had film from the bank that he, in fact, robbed. He just passed a note and said that he had a firearm and to give him all the money that was in the drawer. Very common way of robbing banks. And they're required to give you the money that's in the drawer. And the teller usually will try and slip a die pack in that will explode after you get a certain distance from the bank. In this case, the teller did not, for whatever reason, and he actually got away with the money. But they had the film of him at the bank, and they took still pictures from that film, and they put them in front of him. And they thought that when he saw the pictures that looked like him, he was going to just confess. He didn't say anything. He had asked for an attorney. He knew his rights. He had a long record, so he knew exactly what he was doing. And he just hung on until I got there. So eventually he did get arrested, and he was held on bail for a while. His family made bail. They were able to come up with my fee. And now we were faced with the fact that a case where if he got convicted, he was going to do over 20 years. His record was bad. I mean, he might have done 30, 40 years. So it was imperative that we win the case. And it did not look like a winner, especially with these still pictures. Well, they actually had the video. And so in discovery, I requested and got the video. And the video was actually played at the trial. One of the things that they didn't show him in the pictures that they put in front of him, mostly they just gave him pictures from the side and the front, showing his face. And he had sunglasses on, and he looked like a bank robber, okay? And there was no doubt about it. And it wasn't his first rodeo with robbing banks either. So it did look like him, but it could have been somebody else. But what jumped out to me was that when they took the video from the back, he had this bald spot. He was balding in the center of the back of his head. And they hadn't mentioned that to him. They hadn't even shown him a picture of that. As I said, they didn't use this technique. They were relying solely on the pictures, thinking he was just going to puke up a confession all over the table in front of them. So before the trial, I was confident that we could win this trial, and he wasn't sure why. Well, the morning of the trial, I had him come to my office, and I got some of this black hair, this black spray. It's like artificial hair, and I covered up the hole in his hair, the bald spot, and we combed it. As soon as you spray the stuff, you're supposed to comb it right away, and voila, there was no bald spot. So we went through the trial. They put on the whole prosecution, showed the pictures, showed the video, most importantly. And I didn't put on Michael or any witnesses whatsoever. I reserved everything, put everything into my closing argument. And during that closing argument, for the first time, I pointed out the fact that there was this glaring bald spot in the back of Michael's head. In the pictures they had, in the video they had. And there he sat in the courtroom in front of the jury with no bald spot. And they had no explanation for it. Jeopardy had attached, the trial had begun, and there was no turning back now. The jury came back not guilty on that case. Partially, I think, because the photos weren't that clear, the video wasn't that clear. He did have the sunglasses on. But you never know what a jury's thinking. And I think mostly they came back with a verdict of not guilty, all 12 people voting not guilty, because the bald spot was not there and it looked like it was somebody else, or at least there was reasonable doubt as to whether it was Michael. Now, what should the police have done? What would they do if they had you in the room? And most importantly, what should you do if you think somebody else is lying to you? Well, to break it down in the most simplest form, just remember the acronym TED. T for tell me, E for explain, and D for describe. So again, using our Michael illustration, if they had taken Michael in the room, they didn't even need to tell him they had pictures. They should have saved that for later. But if they had just asked him, tell us where you were at such and such a time, whatever time the bank was robbed. Whatever Michael said, he wasn't expecting to get arrested and detained in the first place. So he most likely wouldn't have had a great tell. Like, he wouldn't have a great answer for that. Tell me where you were. Or explain to me what you were doing. Or describe to me where you were. Describe to me what you were doing. People think that they can talk their way out of anything. So when someone tells you a story or tells you something and you think that they're lying, use this technique. Use that acronym to get them to explain to you what happened, to tell you what they were doing, to describe to you what they saw, what the weather was like. It can be anything that you can look up and you can double check on. There's no way that they're going to be able to cover all those three bases. There's no way they're going to be able to cover up the fact that they're lying to you. You might not be able to get them to confess. You might not be able to get them to confirm the fact that they're lying to you. But you will be able to check on their answers, and you will know. You will find out definitively, based on those three questions, whether or not you're being lied to. Now today's video is extremely short, but it's extremely important. If you haven't seen my other video on whether or not the police can lie to you, I'm going to put the link on the screen. You should check that out right away, because that and this together, they will work very handily to help you in your life, not just with the police, but with dealing with other people. It's human nature to lie. Everybody lies. If you like this, please hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you'd like to leave comments, I welcome them. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.